Hey guys, it's Cash here. A lot of people have been requesting a build video guide for the deck stacking Siege Ballista build. There already is one, and that's who I based mine off of, was Palstron's. But I thought I would remake it for 3.19. This is going to be the high tier budget. I'll also make a quick POB slash guide for lower budget. Let's get into it. So basically, this is like a dedicated bosser. You wouldn't really play this if you're wanting to, map or simulacrums or anything like that. Like it can map, but you're going to get one shot by stuff. For the most part, you just want to do this for bossing. As you can tell from my other videos, I'll post a little clip here of some of them, but you basically burn everything before it kills you. So I just wanted to show you guys what this build is capable of. This is a video that I made the other day of killing Uber Searing Exarch in about 4 seconds. As you can see, there were 50% more monster life, minus 22 player res, which doesn't really matter. Extra physical is cold, etc. 70% less damage because it's Uber. So if you look at the time, 32, and he is dead at 36. So that's that was when I was about 800 and something DPS. I just updated this because I had updated my POB. Here is a 211 quant feared. That's done in a couple of seconds. I will just skip forward to. This is released all at once, by the way. That guy's always delayed, but yeah, this one's just by myself. Not too bad, but here is a Uber steering with 4 people in the group. And he takes a little bit longer this time. As you can see, it's Uber. 4 people are in there with me, so I guess it's a 5 stack if you really want to think about it that way. And he's dead. I can just show you quickly the last phase of Uber Maven. Oh, that was laggy. Oh, I guess my video is laggy. Anyways, he's dead. That's with 3 people in the party too. All dead on the ground. Got some decent loot as well. We lost the Sentinel mod for damage per, or cold damage added per dex, per whatever it was, 10 dex or whatever, which added like, my POB right now is like 1 billion, and I think that took me to like 1.7 billion when I looked last. So it's kind of sad that that was lost. But yeah, on top of the bow, we've got the helmet, which gives you 1% increased elemental damage per 10 dexterity. So currently I'm getting, what is that, 320% increased elemental damage. And you also get, if dexterity is higher than intelligence, get crit multi. Because we are Inquisitor and we also need a lot of int and strength, I actually get a good amount of life as well, flat life. And if your dexterity is, if your strength is higher than intelligence, which mine is currently, then you also get 50% increased dex. The new quiver, Poise Prism, which is just a worse version of, what was it, High Reese, right? Gives you 1 to 2 fire damage per, 1 to 2 cold damage per 10 dex, which adds up. Obviously, it adds quite a bit. And then we've got the amulet, 1% increased damage per 15% dexterity. And then the mastery, where is it here? Where is it here? Oh, here, yeah. 1% increased projectile damage per 16 dex, which adds up a whole bunch. And then also for defensives, we've got Mage Bane. That gives you 1% suppressed per 15. So I actually have, I think if you look at the POB, I think I have like 213% spell suppression is what I have right now. Which is pretty insane. But yeah, so that's how the build scales. It's, yeah, you stack your decks up, including strength and int since we're an Inquisitor. And you get a whole bunch of damage. For Ascendancy, This was all Palstrand's idea. Again, I'm just basically reiterating what he did in the past. We go with Inquisitor because you can get all the big perks of being an Inquisitor while using the Forbidden Jewels to give you Ritual of Awakening. So, I wouldn't recommend going Inquisitor unless you have these. To be completely honest, I would probably wait until you can afford them. Currently, not... Oh, they've gone up. That might be my fault. I'm sorry. 10 Divine. This was, I think, 4. And the other one's 3, which used to be 1. So, sorry. I'm pretty sure I might have raised the prices on those. But yeah, so if you were going Inquisitor, you run Ritual of Awakening, which gives you 5% more damage per summon totem. And that's a more multiplier. So since I have 22, that's 110% damage. Like literally double plus some, right? So that's kind of huge. If you're Inquisitor, that's obviously, I go from 1 billion to 500 million, which obviously still really good. But if you say, have only 50 million DPS starting, brings you down to 25, it's probably worth it to keep Hierophant until then. But yeah, you go with Righteous Providence. So this gives you 1% increased critical strike per strength or int, whichever is lower. So that's why you need both of them decently high. Mine aren't perfect like how I normally would, because I already have cap crit, and even without Bottled Faith here, I'm still at 85, which is, I mean, fine. And most of the time I'm using Bottled Faith on the phase anyway. And then on top of that, you use Inevitable Judgment, which critical strikes ignore enemy monster ele res. So that's why it's so important to have such high such high crit, because in so much penetration, literally ignoring the res by critting. And then the other two you go is Sanctuary and Pious Path. Consecrated Ground applies 15% increased damage to take into enemies, which is also a more multiplier, so 15% flat damage more taken. And if you're stationary, if you're standing still under them, it applies Consecrated Ground. And then Pious Path, whatever, gives you hella ES regen. So if you have more ES than I do, which to be honest, I probably would have rather made my gloves and boots ES if I were to redo it again, but gives you ES regen, which is quite a bit. Right now it says 408, but I'm pretty sure it goes quite a bit higher. And then effects of Consecrated Ground linger for 4 seconds. And the 50% increased effect actually applies to Bottled Faith as well. So it's kind of huge. So instead of just 10%, it's 15% increased damage taken. So that's 15 plus another 15. Actually, it might be 15% on top of this as well. So, 50% of this as well. So that's what, 22 and a half plus another 15. So huge amount of damage. That's all more multipliers. Yeah, so if you're starting out, for the most part, I'd probably start as Hierophant. If you don't have the currency to get these jewels right away, it's not quite in your budget because there are quite a few pricey items. I would go with Hierophant starting out. With that being said, I'm pretty sure what you go would be Conviction of Power, which gives you power charges, frenzy, or endurance charges, gives you some tankiness and a little bit of damage, especially if you're not crit capped. And then Pursuit of Faith, Ritual of Awakening. Those are obviously like the two big ones that you want. And then for the last one, honestly, Divine Guidance gives you a bit of damage. Gives you more mana and mana taken before life, so a little bit more tanky. Let's go through all the items. So yeah, what you want is Iron 6 Link, obviously. They did buff the fusings, tainted fusings. I don't know what the rate is currently. I did this when it was supposedly nerfed, and I got it 6 linked pretty quickly. Supposedly they buffed it, and the rate of getting up 1 rather than down 1 is pretty good. So if you're on a low budget, you're trying to get it 6 linked, socket it with 6 sockets first, try to get a decent roll if you can. Totem placement speed and attack speed are probably the most important. Your attack speed scales your ballista's attack speed. So yeah, get a decent roll. Get it 6-socketed. If you want to do it for cheap, try to get it 5-linked first. And then once you have it 5-linked, you can go into your bestiary, menagerie, whatever. And you can use the corrupt an item to have 30% quality. So you can safely corrupt it. You want to keep the increased critical strike chance because that is base crit on your bow itself. You can corrupt it after. Once you have it 6-socketed, 5-link, corrupt it. Use a tainted orb of fusing on it. Hope that it goes up. If it goes down, that's okay. If it's at 4, use it again. If it goes up, sweet. Use it again. Hope for 6. If you use 2 and it goes down to 3 links, cheaper option would be to just go to your crafting bench and then you will put the 4-link sockets. It only costs you 5 fusings and 5 Val orbs. And yeah, 4-link it again, start the whole thing over. I'm pretty sure it should be a lot easier than it was previously. But yeah, that's how you go about the bow. This bow is super cheap. Let's see, how much is it right now? On 6-linked, it is 1 chaos with a... if we don't do crit chance, if we do tone placement speed and we do attacks... We're looking at a divine. So even if, or maybe 4, depending, that's probably a 6-link, but yeah, really good roll. Can be quite a bit. But either way, you don't need a perfect roll at the beginning. If you're trying to save some money, it helps, but it's not a huge difference. I wouldn't waste a bunch of money on trying to get this perfect. For the helmet, Fractal Thoughts, again, another super cheap item. 4 whole chaos. If you bring the crit multi up here, it can add up 50, 60, 70 C, but it's not too bad. If you can get one with the enchant, great. But it is going to cost you. So 2, 3, 4 divine, depending on the roll, most likely. If I were you, personally, don't care about the crit multi-roll. If you're trying to save some money, don't care about the crit multi-roll. Don't care about the corruption of socketed aura gems, etc. Realistically, if you can get one just with either Siege Ballista has increased attack speed, or Siege Ballista has increased placement speed, I would do that. Most likely, you want the placement speed. It helps a lot. I don't have it currently because I'm just pushing super high damage. I wanted to get over 1 billion on my POB. Yeah, totem placement speed, super huge for this build. Helps a lot. Last item here out of the uniques that we're looking at is Poised Prism, which is new Hyries. Obviously, if you can, get a good resistance roll. The resistances are pretty rough on this build. You're probably going to have some troubles with it if you're not running what I'm running, which is this cluster that has T1 all res on it, which turns into 5% all res times by, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 nodes if you want. That's 50 all res. But yeah, get a decent roll on it if you can. If you don't, not a huge deal. Personally, I would prefer to get Point Blank. Point Blank, I think it's pretty cheap right now. Yeah, Point Blank by itself, like really cheap. 5C, 10C, 50C. Not a huge thing. Saves you a skill point. Physical damage is cold is also good if you decide. I mean, if you can get both, sweet. I don't think there's any other than mine right now that has both. But yeah, extra phys damage is cold is kind of huge. Additional arrow is also big, but that one again is quite expensive. But yeah, for the most part, get a decent roll. If you can, Point Blank. It's a good corruption. It saves you a skill point instead of having to skill it in down here. On to the little bit more expensive stuff. So the boots. So you can get T1 fractured boots with 55 dex for very cheap. I'm pretty sure these are like super cheap. 5 whole chaos, 8 chaos, 15 chaos. Like, you can get these boots for hella cheap. So buy one, get a decent eye level. Let's see what eye level you should have minimum. I don't think it actually matters. Yeah, it doesn't really matter for this. So really just, I mean, get something 80 plus, ideally 83, 82. You're not really rolling anything other than if you want like T1 life or T1 movement speed. T1 movement speed is 86, so if you do want that, you want to get some 86. I don't have it. I went with T2 anyways. Not a huge deal. T1 life is level 54, so it doesn't really matter. I will make a crafting video on these boots after, but this is what they'll look like. The adds lightning damage if you haven't killed actually adds like quite a bit of damage that I found, and you don't want the penetration one because you're already they already have 0 resistance. So if we go over here to the boots, and then we go edits and we remove this. Adds lightning damage. You can see that's 4% DPS, almost 3.8%, 38 million damage for me. So that's a really nice enchant that you can get, and I'm pretty sure it's quite common as well. Totem placement speed I got when Pinnacle Atlas boss. I think that's the best because this build is literally meant for bossing, meant for uber bossing. For any of these that I have for Pinnacle boss, you could go just a unique enemy nearby, and that'll work for any boss. But most bosses you're going to be killing are Pinnacle bosses anyways, so that's what I like to go with. Second one that I got there was physical damage extra cold. That just adds a bunch of damage again. And then the rest of the mods. Abyssal Socket is kind of huge because you get 26, or what is it, 20, you get up to 26 dex, 26 flat dex on a jewel. You might be able to get more. I don't know if you can get dex and int, dex and dex and strength. So it's possible you might be able to get 36 flat with these corrupted 3 or 6 mod jewels. But what you're ideally aiming for would be dexterity, lots of dex, and added damage to bow / whatever attacks. So yeah, like this added cold, added lightning, added fire, like that's huge. It adds a bunch of damage. I've got the same on the other one here. Added chaos, physical, fire, and cold. Like it's just a lot of flat damage that's added. Okay, so yeah, that's the boots. Going over to the gloves, I just have a random enchant on it. It's whatever, it doesn't really matter. For the implicits, you want increased damage per dex, per 100 dex, and you can use any one of them. The difference is between 4 to 6%. And then the second one you want is Intimidate, because that's 10%, like that's straight up 10% damage. So if I remove Intimidate from the POB, we go from 981 to 1.018. So that's what, like 40 mil just from that. Pretty huge. And then you want the Abyssal Socket again, because it adds a bunch of damage with these Abyssal Jewels, flat dex as well. You can start with Fractured T1 dex, 60 dex, because that again, super cheap. Let's see. 13, 20, 50, 70 chaos, like very cheap you can get it for. For this one, let's see, T1 attack speed for gloves. So T1 attack speed for gloves is eye level 76. So realistically, depending on what you're going for, if you want T1 life or something like that, yeah, I mean, eye level isn't too huge. T1 life is level 54 anyways. T1 adds cold damage to attacks is 45. Like, you don't really need a high eye level for these. If you do need res, you can replace the attack speed here with res. Obviously you lose some damage, but in the whole scheme of things, it's better to be res capped, because there are times where you do live when you get hit by things, but for the most part, yeah, you just want to have them. You don't want to die to a degen in a millisecond, right? Instead of you know, a second or two that you could actually get out of it. But yeah, those are the gloves. We've got the belt here, so you can get a synth base with, there's 2 tiers of the synth. So I think the first one's like 9 to 12, tier 1 is 13 to 15. So make sure you're getting minimum, when you look it up, minimum 13. Also be careful though with that, because if people have, the tier 2, with 12% and they have the attribute modifiers, it'll show a higher percent. So when you're looking up, just make sure you're paying attention. For this, I'm pretty sure you want a higher eye level. This is where I got a lot of my resistances from, as well as the essence dexterity. So, I mean, yeah, like right now, super cheap. Again, not a whole lot of people are playing a dex stacking build. See, this is exactly what I mean. So quality, quality attribute modifiers, 20%. You're like, oh, sweet. 14% dex, it's only 40 C, super cheap. And then you hover over and you're like, oh, it's 10 to 12. So yeah, make sure you're keeping an eye out for this. Like this one here is a good 13 to 15. Item level 71 though, that's quite low. Personally, I'd go for, let's see what Craft of Exile says. Belts, I'm pretty sure you want 84, 83. T1 reses, yeah, 84 most likely is what you'll want if you can afford it. If not, get lower. I mean, tier 1, tier 2 is not a huge difference in terms of like the percent of res you can get. But yeah, you're looking at about 2 divines for an eye level 84 and above. Not too bad. Yeah, for this, the gloves, all these items, I'm going to make separate videos with how to craft them. They're pretty straightforward for the most part, doing them how I want. I'll also give some ideas on how to make them whichever way you want, but yeah. Anyways, rings. So I've kind of got a little better bases than most people probably will have. I've got, let's see here. I don't think I can look it up, but I've got flat decks and as well as percent decks. These rings are lit. Like I spent almost 200 divines just getting these rings. Because of them, it got me over 3,200 decks. You don't need to do this. I'm just min-maxing at this point because I want to, and I want to try to push the build as far as I could. And I was really trying to hit 1 billion DPS on in PoB for this. But yeah, so basically you want to buy synth rings with the increased dexterity. We can do 6% because I think, yeah, 6%. So right now you're looking at 6, 7, 8 divines. You probably want a decent eye level AV3 if you can afford it. Looks like it's about 8 divines for one of those, 9 divines possibly. Yeah, these are the rings that you want. So how I made them, you don't need the crit multi on it. I spam crit multi essences because I was min-maxing, obviously, trying to get a little higher damage. This one actually needs to be divined a little bit, but I'm not going to do that right now. Anyways, you want T1 decks, of course, and then basically the rings and the belt. You can't really do it with the boots because you really want that abyssal socket and you really need that total placement speed. Because without it, like, I don't know if I can I just do this? Like, it's just very, very, okay, well, it's slow because I have no mana, but actually I can put these back on. Yeah, if you look at this, it's decently fast. It seems pretty quick. But if you put these on, like, look how much more. And that's not even one of the bosses nearby either. That's just that 40 or whatever, 37%. It gives quite a bit. Yeah, so sorry, for rings, you don't need the crit multi. If you want, you can spam the dex essences until you hit your nice suffixes that you want. You're gonna want to fill in exactly like whatever reses you need. So, or if you need more dex and int, right? Because this is how you basically get your crit up, right? You always want to make sure your strength is higher than your int, but both of these need to be reasonably high, so you can get crit capped. If you're not able to afford a bottled faith, you can run a diamond flask. Oh, I'm not gonna make one right. Yeah, I'm not gonna make one right now. Anyways, you can run a diamond flask with the suffix being increased critical strike chance during flask effect. That'll give you a similar crit amount as bottled faith does. But just make sure when you have bottled faith up, you have crit cap. That's just, it's huge. It just gives you so much. Like, if you look at when I remove Bottled Faith alone is 24.4% damage. Like, that's a huge amount of damage just from Bottled Faith. So when it's down, which it's not down a whole lot because most bosses I just burn instantly, you've got 768 million DPS. When it's up, we're at just over a bill. Anyways, I run 5 damage flasks currently because I try to burn the boss as quick as I can. When you have all of your totems down as well, so when you have Ritual Awakening, regenerate 1% of life per second for each summoned totem. So when I have 22 totems up, that's 22% life per second that I'm regenerating. So if you look now, my life regen is 1200. That's almost a third of my health every second. Or that is a third of my health every second. And that's also ES as well. So if you're getting ES, yeah, it's pretty huge. So on to the chest. This is my mirror chest that I made. It's as close to as good you're going to get this league. You can't get a whole lot of other mods that you'd want. Previously, the only thing that would maybe change is depending on if you want more HP or not, you can get increased life as ES instead of percent increased life that I got, but I like it how I made it. It's perfect for me. So for the implicits, you want Pinnacle Atlas boss or unique boss hatred or effect. Unique or pinnacle is good, but I prefer pinnacle just because that's what I do all the time. And then I was trying to go for Pinnacle Atlas boss for the non-curse, but I spent hundreds and hundreds and I couldn't hit it, so I just kept it with the unique. It's a few percent, but min-maxing is min-maxing. For this, we've got Essence Life, Essence T1 Life, and then we got T1 Hybrid, and then a Unveiled percent max life, T1 Dex, and then crafted increased attributes. And then obviously the Esh mod from the Breach Rings, which is 1% increased attack speed per 25 Dex. So yeah, this, and then on top of that, we've got the Enchant, 1% Dex per 1 Dex per 2% quality, which gives you 15 more flat Dex, which is really nice. Yeah, this is, it's decently hard to make. I would recommend making it if you maybe have, 50 div to spend on trying to craft it. You're probably not going to get it quite this good for 50 div, but you can probably get it decently close. The cheaper option for this is Brisk Wrap, which gives you a lot of damage. No defensives, I don't think really at all, but gives you good amount of dex, 15% dex, huge. Cold res, very nice. Evasion rating, and 1% increased damage for 15 dexterity. So super solid, cheap that you could get right now. Probably can get a double corrupted or corrupted one with decent mods for reasonably cheap as well. And then same thing as like I said with the Iron Commander, 6 socket it, etc. And then link it with Tainted Fusings after corrupting. Yeah, Brisk Wrap, super solid. Just obviously no defensives at all. No of the implicits that you get from this Grasping Mail. Last item that we are wearing is the GG Amulet. So basically we've got Flat Dex and Int, which is the Unveiled Dex and Int. We've got T1 increased Dex with a perfect roll 12%. We've got T1 increased attributes, which is 9%. Cold damage to attacks, which I crafted on. Obviously, you can craft anything you want, but this gave me the most amount of damage. I got T3 life, super luckily, and 1% increased damage per 15 dexterity. Super good amulet. This is probably one of the best of this league currently. I can't imagine anybody has better than this right now. I could be wrong, but I know there is one with T1 dex on the suffix. It's really nice, but I don't think it has increased damage per dex. Yeah, so for flasks, what I'm using, Silver Flask, gives you onslaught. Increased effect just to put, you don't actually get increased onslaught effect. This is literally just for the attack speed during flask effect. This could probably be better, but whatever. It gives me damage. It's all good. At Series Promise with increased effect, you can put increased effect on all these because you're actually going to use it. It's not just a POB bait, because most of the time you're trying to burn phases, right? So, Uber Maven, I tend to just keep it, like if I'm carrying like 4 people, I tend to keep all my flasks up for the last phase. As soon as the last phase comes up, tell everybody to come in, put all your ballistas down, pop all your flasks, and she should die pretty quick. Yeah, it's Series Promise. I've got a perfect roll in this one. Dying Sun. The rolls don't really matter. Increased charges per use. You could try to get that lower in the less duration. You could get lower. Area effect doesn't matter at all. You're really there for the additional projectiles. 70% increased effect. That applies to projectiles as well. So, yeah, you get the point. Taste of Hate. This one, it doesn't honestly give a whole lot of damage. Let's see. What do we get here? Taste of Fate. So, I mean, you know, 6% damage. Not too bad. Compared to the other flasks, it's a little low. 20% basically from Dying Sun. Series 8.2%. 11.9% from the for the flask. So if I were you, depending if you're having problems dying to some shit, keep this one. Swap out the Onslaught flask for something else. Actually, I think it would even be better to swap out the Atziri there. Yeah, because Onslaught even gives more damage. So probably swap this out. This is only nice though because you get Chaos Res, so brings me up to a whole 16. But yeah, if you need a health flask, most of the time you get one shot anyway. But if you need a health flask, swap out one of the potions for it. That's basically your call. You might be under Captain Res, whatever. But yeah, that's most of the items here. I could go over the skills really quick. Yeah, let's go over the skills. So, we've got Frenzy. Quality doesn't matter. Alternate quality doesn't matter. This is literally just to proc Calling Strike, as well as give you Frenzy charges. Frenzy charges help. You should have 5 max charges when you're... Or sorry, 4 max charges when you have this node. I'm not level 100 yet, but when I am, I'll be getting that node. It's also just a good node to have in general. Anyways, yeah. Frenzy, Calling Strike support for Calling Strike, obviously. Mark on hit support. I'm using Divergent because near marked enemies take 5% increased damage. Pretty big. Sniper's Mark. Regular Sniper's Mark because it's increased damage from projectile hits. That gave me the most damage out of all of them. Enhance, which gives you increased damage. Gives you increased damage. And for Anomalous Summon Lightning Golem, it also gives you increased buff effect. So, yeah, that's the 6th link there. Doesn't need to really be 6 linked. Like, I mean, yeah, it's probably good to have if you're running Enhance. You don't need Enhance 4 either. You could run Enhance 3. That's fine. You don't need any of the alternate qualities, really. This has just been maxing stuff. Just letting you know what gives you the most damage. I've got faster casting with Flame Dash, just because I hate when it's slow as hell. Again, that can be swapped to something else if you want. Steel Skin, because you don't have a whole lot of armor for Molten Shell. You could run a Mortal Call, but Steel Skin is just nice. It takes away bleeding as well. So yeah, nice little bit of EHP for you. Then in here we've got Divergent, Summer Skidabots, Unbound Ailments, Waken Unbound Ailments, and Divergent Bone Shell support. So for these, the one thing I'll mention is if you're having trouble with resistances, so if your resistances aren't capped, you can't get them capped, you can't afford a cluster that's going to give you 50 all res, I would take out Skitterbots. You'll lose obviously quite a bit of damage, but it's better to have the max res. Like if I take this out, I go down to 837, so it's quite a big jump in damage. But I would take this out and run Purity of Elements. Just give you all your res and you'll be fine. For our 6 link for our ballistas, we've got Anomalous Siege Ballista, which you can get actually for, I think it's pretty cheap for not a 2120. Yeah, I mean 45C, super cheap. Definitely worth getting for sure because it gives you an additional projectile. Reduced attack speed sucks, obviously, but it's not that big of a deal because the additional projectiles just give you so much more damage. Then we've got Barrage Support. This can be swapped out for Hypothermia when you're mapping, like when I go and clear Cortex or go run through Atziri before getting to Atziri. I put Hypothermia. You could also do GMP as well. Not really necessary because you already get a shotgunning type thing when you use the ballistas, but weaken LE damage with attacks can be regular if you don't have the currency for it. Damage on full life, again, super cheap, crazy cheap jewel. 2120 is only 150C. Increased critical damage support, again, cheap jewel. If you just get a regular 2020, it's like whatever 20C, something like that. And then Divergent Inspiration. This one is pretty important because you need reduced mana cost. Ballistas cost a lot. If we've got none of these on, so I've got non-channeling on both my rings, and then Divergent Inspiration, we're 36 mana per. I can craft, or I can use a whole 1 ballista. Oh, sorry, 2 ballistas before my mana's out. So definitely Divergent Inspiration is huge. It takes away, what is it, 20? Yeah, 10% mana cost. And that's off the base mana cost. So yeah, it helps a lot. So if we take that off, we're 11, we go to 22. So it's basically 50% right there just from that. I might not actually need it anymore, possibly. But anyways, for ours, we've got an Enlighten, we've got Hatred, we've got Haste, Val Haste. So this is literally only used for the Val. I don't run this aura. Would be nice. I run it when I'm like running through maps before I get to say Cortex or Atziri. I turn off my skitter bots and I turn on Haste. Just gives you a little speed boost. Kind of nice. But yeah, this is just for the Val Haste. Gives you a good boost of damage. You know, 32% increased attack speed. Pretty huge. That doesn't actually need to be... Actually, it kind of does because I have no other slots anyways. But and then we've got a level 7 precision. Change that depending on... honestly, you don't even need to run this. The only reason that I'm running this is because of my Watcher's Eye. 30% crit multi while affected by precision. It obviously also helps for increased critical strike chance. So if you're not crit capped, this will help. Again, depending on what auras you're running, you can choose skitter bots like this. You don't even need to run skitter bots with the Bone Shell and Unveilments if you don't have the mana reservation for it. So if I do this and I also take off my precision, like we have like over a third of our mana remaining. You might, no. I was going to say you might be able to run Purity with that, but no, you can't. Yeah, so say you don't have Charisma allocated like I do, then yeah, you could, or you don't have an Enlighten 4 and your mana reservations. That's something you kind of have to determine on your own depending on how your build's going, but... yeah, so that's about it for items that we've got on us. Then we can go over jewels really quickly. So this build relies on a lot of jewels. Clusters are huge. Clusters give you a bunch of damage. So let's go to POB, I think, for this. Might be easier to go through them all. So you start off with your split personality. So for me, I'm running Dex and Life. If you don't know what these do, basically 25% increased effect per allocated passive skill. So instead of 5 decks, I'm getting 56 decks and 56 life on this one, 51 and 51 on this one. That's because you've got an extra nodes on here. So I'm running dex and life because I can at this point. I don't need more int and strength, but this is a good way to get you a good 50, 56 flat int, which obviously scales with the attributes mastery, as well as scales with your amulet, which is increased attributes. And then your chest as well. So it scales super nicely, gives you that flat int, flat dex. Yeah, if you're saying the 200 range of these, I would stick one with dex and int, one with dex and strength. Make sure your strength is obviously higher than your int, and you can help that a little bit by swapping these around. It's not a whole lot. And you also want to make sure this is not connected fully, because if it is connected, then you don't get that extra 5. It's not a huge deal, but it adds up. So yeah, split personality, those are the first two. I think I'll just stay in here. Watcher's Eye, very important to have the physical damage converted to cold while affected by hatred. And then on the gloves as well, the Chosen Veiled mod, which is physical damage converted to cold. I'll make a video crafting these again, just putting that out there. So then we've got our cluster. This is a almost perfect, aside from the T3 life, but we've got 35% increased effect, 4 to all attributes, and 8 to dexterity. So T1, 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 and that gives me per node 10 dex, 5 attributes, and some life, and obviously the damage with bows. So yeah, that's pretty huge. That's 15 flat dex per node. You get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 150 flat dex. So these are massive. These help so much, but they're very hard to craft. If I were you, if you're starting out, try to get at least the increased effect and T1 dex. If you can't even get that, 35 increased effect with T2 dex is good as well. I think there are some of these out right now. Yeah, 8 divine, 10 divine, etc. I'll make a video on crafting these super quickly. It's not too complicated, but yeah. Anyways, second cluster I've got is the same thing, but T2 all attributes, sadly, because I wasn't able to hit T1 and I didn't feel like keep going because I just made it over 3,200 anyway, and that was my goal. For jewels here, we've got Emperor's Cunning. This one is a little expensive. For any roll, it's not too bad, but if you want a 6% roll, you're looking at nothing because nobody has one right now. Offline, let's see, 8 hours ago, 2 divine, 2 to 3, maybe 1 if you're lucky. A little bit more expensive. This jewel is cheap as hell now, I believe. Perfect rolls, 130C. That just gives you 2 additional projectiles. You obviously want lower percentage on the reduced totem damage because that'll do less damage. Then we got the Forbidden set, Forbidden Flame, which is Ritual of Awakening. Again, like I said earlier, these are pretty expensive now. Sadly, 10 divine and 3. So you're looking at 12, 13 divine at least. And then we've got Unnatural Instinct. This is obviously an expensive jewel, 20 div right now. It's not 100% necessary, but it's kind of huge. Like, you get so much. You get a bunch of physical damage. You get projectile damage. You get dexterity. You get all the reses. Oh, sorry, here. You get all the reses. 18 of each, which is massive. You get attack speed, totem placement speed. You get skill effect duration. It gives you huge everything basically. I'll do the timeless last. Then we've got fluid motion. This one's really cheap. You can get a 24 roll for 1520C. I got mine with corrupted blood, I think for like 5 div. It's 10 div right now. Yeah, that's just a super cheap jewel. And then we've got another cluster. So this is my cluster for basically all my res. I need to not recraft, but make another one of these. This one was the stupidest luck ever. I basically regaled the the T1 Ellie res, and then I exalt slammed the T1 life. Super lucky, but anyways, yeah, so this is how I'm getting most of my res, by having a cluster. Again, you can have this or two if you really need a bunch of res, but that's how I get mine. Interrogation, this is completely necessary, 100% necessary. If I don't have this on, or if we don't have brittle, let's see, I go down to 61 crit. 61% without brittle. So even though brittle was nerfed like crazy, you can only get 6% max instead of 15. This gives you huge crit chance. So this is 100% necessary. 1.4 div, pretty cheap, reasonably speaking, compared to last leagues. It's been 8, 10, so it's not too bad. Last thing we got here is the timeless jewel. So I was fortunate enough to get one with 5 nodes on really nice spots. So I've got 5%, 5%, 5%, 5%, 5%. So we got 25% increased dex. This is pretty big. You can get a 20% for pretty cheap. I'll also make a I know I'm saying I'm going to make these videos and I swear I will, but making a video on how to find the timeless jewels. It's pretty easy to do through PoE now. They've added the option to find the timeless jewel. Actually, I'll just do it now, because this doesn't even need a separate video for. Basically, what you do is you click Find Timeless Jewel here. So first off, what I would do is click all the nodes that you're okay with getting points on. Personally, these aren't too bad because they're only 2 nodes, but these are all horrible for you. They do nothing. So ideally, I mean, this mana's not horrible, gives you int, not horrible. So I'd click that. I'd click this because it's projectile damage. I'd click this because it's endurance charge. You don't actually get an endurance charge, but it's only 2 points. Savagery, obviously it's only 1 point and it gives you more damage. This node's not bad, gives you res, evasion rating, armor. This one gives you a bunch of life. This one's already checked off. This one's not too bad because the non-effect or non-curse auras on enemies, which doesn't affect your hatred, I believe, and it doesn't affect your precision, but it does affect your skitter bounce, which gives you a little bit more damage. So I would check off all the nodes you're okay with getting. For me, it's this. If you're looking for one over here, you can also get one over here. If you find one that's decent, you've got some good nodes over here. Heartseeker, Crit Multi, that also allows you to get the plus 3 level of critical support gems, which is actually your increased critical damage, and that's 7.5% increased damage, which is pretty huge. You've also got the 25 crit multi here, which would give me a whole 120 mil DPS. I guess for this one, it's just 5.2, but still 5.2% for that 1 point. These nodes are all good, especially if you don't have cap crit. Yeah, there's a bunch of nice nodes over here, so you can do the same thing over here. But basically, once you have your node selected, click Find the Timeless Jewel at the bottom. You want to select Brutal Restraint because that's the one that gives you % dex. This doesn't matter because we're not picking the node. And then you want to select which one you're getting it on. So I'm getting on Duelist because that's one that I have. You make sure you check off Filter Nodes. Filter Nodes makes it so it only looks at the nodes that you have checked. And then go to Primary No Weight. I just put this 10. You can put Total Dexterity. I wouldn't. I would just do the % dexterity. So put this full and then go search for node. Go down to add % dexterity like this. It's already in there, so it doesn't really matter. And then you can go search. So we look at 909. This one is pretty cracked. So all you do is double click on it, 5333, double click on it. And then if you right click on your node here, it adds them to the bottom. So these are other ones that I've looked at in the past, but basically we can go 5333 here and they look back and you go dexterity. There was a way to look this up just for that. I forget how, to be completely honest. I'm too lazy to look at it, but looks like this 533 is a good one because we've got 5% here, 5% here, 5% here, 5% here. So those are all decent nodes, not far to get to. Doesn't cost you a whole lot. And then the last one is 5% here. So we've got a 25%er you know, now you can go into PO or the trade site, look this up. So I actually have a bunch of them saved. But if I go to, I think this one was actually the 5333. Yeah. So that was a 5333. These guys obviously know what it does. It gives you a bunch of decks. They've been sitting for a while. This Mango Bear I messaged like 5 days ago. And he still hasn't sold it. So, you could probably get them down. Sometimes you can snipe them. Let's see if any of these. This guy looks like he's just sniping them all. 50 div. 17 div. I think they know. They obviously know. 1.5 div, but yeah, these it's possible to snipe them. People don't know sometimes. If you don't have it already, get this better trading add-on. It's super nice. Allows you to save trades, register current trade, put in the trade name, and then you can just go back to it. Just keep looking. I sniped this one that I have right now. I sniped it for 1 div. Is crazy. Super cheap. Where is it here? I think this is it. Which one am I using? I don't even know which one I'm using. Is this the one I'm using? 909? Yeah. Oh, wait. Yeah, 909. So that's what I'm using is 909. Only one I see up right now is for 50 div. I sniped it for 2, so I was super lucky. But yeah, that's how you look up Timeless Jewel. You can do it on whatever. Filter nodes, search. So there's one with actual 7, which is 35%, but it's in a really, there's a bunch of shit nodes on it, so it's just not even worth running. So yeah, that's all of the jewels for the build. As for leveling, you can level up with Stormbrand. Anything else really, either projectile, lightning based. But yeah, Stormbrand's really nice. Obviously get all your leveling uniques, or if you're building it straight from scratch, just go Stormbrand. It should be really easy for you to go through everything, and then swap later once you're starting to get some of your gear, the uniques, etc. I just want to reiterate, this is not really meant for mapping. You are going to be squishy. You do get one shot by random shit all the time. If you want to see my deaths, I have 1,025 deaths. If you look at my kills, I've only got 67,000, but majority of those are bosses. I haven't killed 67,000 bosses, but I probably killed, 5,000, 4,000 already this week. I've killed Searing himself like 900 times, so yeah. This just a bossing build. Great build. Like I would recommend anybody to play it because it's just really fun. Even if you don't get to the mirror tier, like this, I've probably invested about 1,000 divines into this right now. But if you even if you don't get to this point, you can definitely get 2,200 dex, 100, 200 mil DPS like fairly easily. 50 divine, something like that, you can get it going pretty good. But you definitely need investment if you want to push it further. But to get started, I mean, running Briscrap, running these uniques, like the 4 main items right there, like that's super cheap. This belt, just the base alone, slam some essences on it. You've got your belt for 2 divines. Gloves, boots, pretty decent to make if you don't want them perfect. Rings, the bases are expensive, but the other alternative, instead of getting the percent dex on them, is you can get the new mirrored rings that have just like 150 dex and whatever decent mods you can get on them. So those are pretty huge. And then amulet, if you can't afford something like this, I mean, it's pretty cheap because you can buy the increased attributes and you can buy the increased dex. And you can sell them together and make an amulet with those 2 mods for, a divine, like an Awakener's Orb cost basically, plus some C. But other than that, you can just go Astromantis, because it gives you a lot of stats and it scales, right? So yeah, overall, good build. I'm going to make more of a budget guide right after this. This is meant kind of for higher tier if you have a little bit more money. Yeah. Enjoy.